Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Black Hat USA 2021. I'm your host, Chuck Harold. We're here with Airgap and the Airgap Networks. My next guest is Mr. Jeff McDaniel. He's the senior engineer for Airgap Networks. Mr. Jeff, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having us.
Today's topic is automating ransomware kill switch and a demo. Now, you have me a kill switch. When you say ransomware kill switch, I just know what it does. And if it doesn't do exactly what I think it doesn't matter because it's a cool name, but I know it's going to perform. But for people that don't quite understand the importance of this, walk me through this real briefly, because ransomware is the scourge of the earth, as everybody knows. People are scrambling for solutions. Nobody knows what to do, but Airgap knows what to do.
Right, exactly. So, there's two premise with security today, right? One is, there's still a concept of defense in depth, right? So we have firewalls. We'll have an agent on a server or a workstation. So the thought there is we need to stop that bad actor or that malicious code at a gateway or stop it at the host, right? The challenge is if you don't stop it at the gateway or stop it at the host, what do you do? And that's the whole premise of Airgap Networks. Is it's not if it's going to happen, it's when. It's stopping that lateral movement, right? Even amongst inter and intra VLAN communication. So you have two computers sitting right next to each other. Let's say operations or accounting. There's no reason why they laterally should be communicating with SMB or SSH or RDP, right? So the premise of Airgap is we stop that lateral communication even in the same VLAN.
All right. Now, my small Security Guy TV brain got stuck on a couple acronyms, but I think I get what's going on here. I think this is important. Automation is the secret sauce, because certainly if I had 1,000 security engineers at everybody's workstation sitting next to the employee, I could push a button and stop ransomware, but that's just not practical. We don't have enough people to do this. Walk me through the automation, because I think this is really the unique identifier to Airgap.
Right. So, we are an API-driven platform. So while I do have a concept of a single pane of glass, if I'm a security engineer supporting Airgap, I can click on a button. I can manually perform tasks. More importantly, though, to your question, especially in the 24/7 SOC arena, is we're able to integrate in with other EDR agents, right? In with SIM platforms and SOAR platforms from a concept of playbooks, right? So a playbook basically says, if I see this, meaning if you have an EDR agent that says there's malware on a PC, right, or on a server, we can automate that process to start either locking down or quarantining a specific device, or actually start ratcheting up security across that VLAN or the entire network.
Well, that was my next question. So I think it's important people to understand that I don't have to push the kill switch and shut everything down. I can do this in sections. I can do just Chuck's computer. I can evaluate, and I can start spreading that out and control the rollout of the kill switch. Is that a good way to describe it?
Great way. Yep. Great understanding.
Now, there's all this talk about convergence. Now, if you weren't converging 25 years ago, I think you missed the whole premise. Physical security, logical security, it's just security, right? I mean, let's face it, it's just security, and we need to work together on this. Here's what I find. The physical security people understand bad guys. The IT, logical security people, they're learning, but they haven't been in that space as long, right? So they're developing responsive IT security measures based on behavior. So can this kill switch really be used outside the IT world? In other words, I'm the CSO, I'm the chief security officer. You know what? At 3 o'clock in the morning, my guard at that network center that's controlling the signal for a TV show worldwide, if he sees something funny, we might need him to act quickly to stop something right away and let IT get in there and evaluate it. I know that's kind of a wild question, but I think we're getting to a point where we're going to have to use physical security people to help kind of support some of this automation.
Yeah, and so I think more importantly than that, so while when you look at the broader concept of your question, absolutely, the broader concept is everybody needs to start working together, right? There's no reason why a firewall should be a firewall unto itself. An EDR agent should be an EDR agent and doesn't interact with, any other security, physical or logical security device, right? One of the things that we have been implementing is working with other platforms, EDR agents as well as firewalls, to define security scores, right? So there's a concept of security scores or host scores in the physical arena to say, okay, this workstation, we've interrogated it, we give it a security ranking of 80, or we give it a security ranking of 20, right? 20 being bad. Airgap has the ability to dynamically and automatically, as these workstations or physical device security scores change, we can put them in the appropriate bucket. Maybe if you're an 80, great, you have greater autonomy and access to the network. If you're a 20, I'm going to start automatically locking you down as far as the ports and protocols you can access on the network.
Well, now that's brilliant, right? And so I'm thinking of my guard at the studio at 3 o'clock in the morning on TikTok. Instead of watching the access control system, his computer's going to get rated to a position where I'm going to get notified in physical security and say, Chuck, you got to up your game here with your computers inside your department, right? That's really a good idea. And I think someday we might see, a kill switch on your PC at the workstation, and you just know that you opened up something by mistake. You're not quite sure if it's malicious. Let me hit that kill switch for my computer right here and call somebody, right? Then we're really cutting down the time. Now, let's talk about the secret sauce. Tell me how you automate this. This is the key. We have a massive security shortage of security personnel, and we can't just do this with one guy doing it. So tell me about the automation 24/7,
Right.
or as you say it, 7/24.
Right. So really, it's all API driven. So and we publish, we don't hide it. So we have an API, a RESTful API stack. So actually, when you look at the single pane of glass that I talked about earlier, and the ability that you have to create policies manually or push buttons manually, I actually have the ability, from an automated standpoint, to perform more things automatically than I do manually, right? So when we look at a RESTful API call from an EDR agent or from a SIM or SOAR platform, I have the ability to say, hey, tell Airgap to quarantine this workstation. Or maybe we do have a legacy application that we need to allow lateral SMB communication between 3 workstations, but one of the 3 workstations actually has malware or it's got ransomware. You know what? We need to actually automatically knock SMB down and block SMB from moving laterally between these 3 devices in the VLAN. So those are the things that we're able to basically have be an automated function, and we do that through a RESTful API stack.
Now, I want you to calm the nerves of somebody who's an IT guy that says, listen, Jeff, I got 125 different applications on my network. I can't keep track of them all. Automation sounds good, but then I'm not in control. You're going to get this a little bit of a pushback here. Speak to that person and make them understand why automation is the way to go and why it's really automated.
Right. So the great news for customers looking at Airgap is the premise of our security model and ability. It's agentless based, right? We all have agent burnout. And so the most of the customers that I speak to, the security engineers, the network engineers, the individuals that are responsible for those desktops or servers, is I just don't want to install a 12th or a 13th agent, right? It's just something else I have to manage, and something else that's going to step on something else in an application stack somewhere. First of all, we're agentless based, right? Second of all, the ability to be able to implement Airgap, I can actually do that non-disruptively, and we go into what's called learning mode, right? So when I implement Airgap on a customer's network, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at interaction. I'm looking at the ports and protocols for inter as well as intra VLAN and inter and intra site communication. And you actually get a graphical representation of all traffic on the network device to device, right? So that's first and foremost is it's non-disruptive install. Second is you start implementing security based on your needs of protection. So maybe you say, I want to protect the crown jewels today, and then I'm going to slowly move this out to my perimeter devices. No matter what your plan is, no matter what your goal is, we're able to implement and react in all scenarios.
All right, Mr. Jeff, I want to go back to my crazy idea about having a kill switch on your PC. I still think this is a great idea because I'm thinking of my broadcast environment I used to work in where anything that gets on the network that goes live is problematic. And maybe I'm some guy and I'm watching Fox Sports and all of a sudden I open my computer and say, oh, I shouldn't have clicked on that. I better hit this kill switch now because I know it's going to be bad. And that could even get ahead of the automation process. Is that really a far-fetched idea?
No, in fact, not at all. You're light years ahead of your thought process. In fact, I don't want to spill the beans too much, but we'll be announcing at Black Hat a strategic partnership, right, with a very good security vendor, an excellent security vendor. They've been a solid partner and great partner to work with. We'll actually be able to use their security model and their agent and be able to push down that kill switch concept to their endpoint, to that workstation. So let's just let's walk that through, right? Somebody's working at home. They have a workstation sitting on a network. Their kid has an Xbox, right? These bad actors, of course, they give out these free mods for Xbox, right? Because they're nice guys. No, they want to compromise things on the network, right? So as devices go from the campus network, right? Traditionally, which is what we're talking about, being able to protect campus devices and data center devices, they now go home for whatever reason and they work at home. We have the ability to push down policies and push down the kill switch to say, hey, we don't want to allow this, or something's happening. We need to block whatever port or protocol that might be. So they can go out to the internet or very specific places on the internet, but not traverse anywhere else around and not have anything else at home interact with them. So great question.
Well, apparently my white hair is good for something. Apparently. I'm glad I figure that out. Now, I like to see the nuts and bolts of this. You have a video you like to show us maybe, or maybe a live demo of how this looks? Because people, I think, need to visualize this to understand it. And I think once they visualize it, they go, I get it, So do you want to, should we show that video?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's do that. So this is the kill switch, right, that we talk about. Think of it as a DEFCON level, right? DEFCON 1 is green. We define policies that say these systems on the network, on the campus, can use these very specific ports and protocols. But what happens if an endpoint, let's say from your EDR agent, identifies that there's malware or that there's ransomware on a specific device, right? We can actually enact yellow simply by clicking on or automating that process, and we go to yellow. So what does yellow look like, right? So if we click on settings, right, we're going to be able to actually define policies. So this is the concept earlier that maybe all devices on a VLAN, I want to block lateral movement of SMB. I want to drop that, right? So I have the ability to actually define a policy, right? If, let's say you're under really bad attack, red, I can define a policy that says don't allow any intra or inter VLAN communication of any port or protocol, right? So it gives the user or the administrator the ability to get very granular control even on inter VLAN type traffic.
And I was surprised that, to me, as a layperson in this field, how easy to understand that is. I mean, literally, if all the IT people, went to lunch and something happened, I could figure that out. I think that's really a good way to do it.
There's a concept around a ring fence device. We all carry one, right? It's a cell phone. When you look at how cellular infrastructure is built, if we're on the same tower, my device is ring fenced from yours, right? So our premise of what we're doing for network security is not new. Technically, how we're doing it is very new concept. So when you talk about war stories, whether you're a large company or a small company, we always get the wow factor that, well, why hasn't somebody else thought of this? You can't possibly do this. And once they implement Airgap, the concept and the light bulb really comes on that says, holy cow, you guys really do what you say you can do. And this is not just a widget that I have. This is actually a main tool in my arsenal.
All right. So I'm in the meeting, I'm in the pitch meeting, and I'm the purchasing agent, and I don't know too much about this stuff, but my IT guy's going to back me up on it. How is this being received? I mean, it's such a simple concept, but you're the only guys that do it. Right? But so it must be something where people say, well, I'm not sure I believe this. Why hasn't this happened before? Why hasn't anybody done this before? Walk us through what some wow factor, how this comes across to people when you explain it to them.
Yep, right. Absolutely. Great question. So when we talk to CISOs or executives at a company, of course, everybody wants to stop malware. Everybody wants to stop the bad actors or ransomware, right? I think the thought of we're going to be able to stop it at the gate, people are past that. It's like, once it gets in, what do I do? The natural conversation for us typically leads to the infrastructure team, right? And there is a wow factor that what we do is very, very simple. And as far as how we do it, it's very simple as to how we ring fence devices. So when we're talking to infrastructure people, the first thought might be, wow, I've got to make a lot of changes. And that's actually not the case. Once we explain our methodology and how we have a non-disruptive implementation, even from a POC standpoint, and we can have a non-disruptive pullout, that the wow factor is that most people find it refreshing of how easy it is for us to implement, how easy it is for us to model their environment to actually have secure infrastructure.
Jeff McDaniel, the principal security engineer for Airgap.io. Mr. Jeff, I got it. And I'll tell you why that's significant. I'm probably at the bottom of the IT world as far as understanding. I got a basic knowledge, know how things work. No expert, maybe compared to physical security people. And you know what? I understood this completely. And that's important because the CISO is going to get it. But you know who you have to sell this to? You got to sell it down the line to get the motivation for this to become the use network program. It's got, you got to get the actual people using it to say we got to have this. So I think you did a brilliant job on this. And all right, now remember, let's do some housekeeping. Visit Airgap at Innovation City 34. That's IC 34. And on the Black Hat USA virtual platform. Mr. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show, my friend, and good luck to you at the show.
Thank you very much for having us. Definitely looking forward to the show. Exciting times since we've all kind of been on lockdown the last year and a half.